Hello, everybody, and welcome to this special edition of the Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music's Conversations with our curator. My name is Melissa Kozlowski, and I am the Director of Curatorial Affairs for the Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music here at Monmouth University. If you're not super familiar with us, we are located, as I said, on the campus of Monmouth University at the beautiful Jersey Shore. We're just a mile from the beach and just up the road from famed Asbury Park. And our mission is really twofold. We are Bruce Springsteen's official repository, yes, but we also seek to tell broad stories about American life, history, and culture through the very accessible prism of music. This is the first conversations with our curator that we are doing since we opened our brand new 30,000 square foot new center. So we've got exhibits on all genres of American music history throughout our 250-year span as a country. And of course, lots of exhibits on Bruce and the E Street Band. So everyone will want to plan their visit by visiting springsteencenter.org. You can find more about the exhibits, more about our robust schedule of programming, and more on that website. Today's program, though, Conversations with our curator, is something we started a little over 2 years ago so that we could engage with authors who have new music history books. Sometimes they're about Bruce and sometimes they are not. Today they are. I am chatting with Nico Pethes. Oh, I didn't do it, did I? We practiced in advance. Correct my pronunciation.
Pettesh, but don't worry.
Thank you. Regardless, Nico is the author of an amazing new book, Springsteen Fandom, A Lifetime Conversation. And when I saw Nico's book, I knew we had to get him on Conversations with our curator because I say this all the time. No musician, no artist enjoys a career as long and as successful as Bruce has if not for the fans, right? It doesn't matter how talented you are. It's the fans, really, that help keep you going. The fans who keep coming back to your shows and buying your albums because your music resonates with them in special ways. So I'm so happy to have you here, Nico.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. And again, let's tell everybody, why are we pre-taping this issue of
Oh, right.
Conversations with our curator? Where are you today?
Well, I'm in Bonn, Germany, and that's a 6 hour time difference to the East Coast. And so
Yeah.
it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon over here.
Yeah.
And the official time at, I think, 7 p.m. your time would have been somewhere around after midnight for me. So I'm really grateful we can
We
do it this
did
way.
not want to keep you up that late. Listen, I
Thank
like to
you.
go to bed at 9 o'clock, so I
Yeah.
certainly was not going to make somebody stay up till midnight.
Thank you so much.
Oh, so let's dive in, Nico. Just give us a thumbnail overview of yourself.
Okay. I'm wondering now whether I should start with saying I'm a lifelong Bruce fan or with saying that I teach literature at the University of Cologne, which is my professional career, which I've been pursuing for, I don't know, the past 30 years. And I dealt with a lot of topics, history of literature, but the magic moment for me was when I realized just some 3 years ago that why not connect my fandom with my professional interests and take a step aside from German literature, what I'm usually dealing with, and trying to work something out on my passion on the music of Bruce Springsteen, and that's what I did, and it's been an amazing experience and a great journey.
Now, having such a quote unquote serious
Exactly.
background, were there moments that gave you pause where you were like, can I really do this? Can I really look at Springsteen fandom as a serious area of study?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to answer in two ways. The one is that I did not want to talk about Springsteen in a purely scholarly way. So I did not want to turn him into an area of study in a very narrow sense. But I felt that there's something about him and about the way I relate to him that goes beyond that, and that also involves me, personally. and I wanted to voice that. And so it is, of course, in parts, it might maybe read in parts as an academic study, but I did not intend it to be. The other part of the answer is yes, do want to take this seriously, and there's a reason for that, and that's basically what motivated me, because oftentimes fandom is treated as something that is, like a teenage thing, or almost something pathological, like mass hysteria, or it's labeled simply as a commercial interest by record labels who create fandom in order to raise their sales. So there are all kinds of theories, that claim that fandom is something that is not, let's put it like that. That's not a mature thing to uphold past your teenage years. And there's also there's also this notion that any fan who has the feeling of being in some kind of exchange with the artist they like, that's just imaginary. It might be even delusional. You know what I'm talking about. So, and all these things, I can see where they come from, but I felt that they, do not justice to the phenomenon. There's something, as you phrased it, serious about that phenomenon. And I was in my book, I try to address it. I try to talk about why, fandom is something that has an actual relevance and that may be taken serious in this way and not just, talked about in any kind of derogatory way.
Hmm. I love that. I want to pause for a second here and give a shout out to some Springsteen fans who actually made, in some ways, what we're doing here today possible. What we now call the Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music actually started as a fan-based
Oh, cool.
collection.
Yeah,
It's
very
actually
cool.
a group of Springsteen fans back in
Mhm.
2001 who
Mhm.
they decide that they're going to pool their fan-based collections, right? Things that they
Mhm.
had collected, like ticket stubs and bootleg
Yeah,
recordings and
yeah.
tour merchandise. They pool that. They form their own 501(c)(3 to make
Mhm.
their fan-based collection available to researchers. And then, it's a long story people can read about on our website, but
Mhm.
ultimately that turns into this 30,000 square foot building that we are in today. So again,
Yeah.
the idea that fandom is frivolous is to me a completely foreign one. I completely reject that notion. So, your book was preaching to the choir as far as I'm concerned. But
Yeah.
let's dig a
Thanks.
little more into this concept of a lifetime conversation.
Yeah,
You touched
yeah.
on it a bit, but tell us how, for many Springsteen fans, they've been riding this train for 50 years
Mm,
now.
exactly. Yeah. So first, I want to point out that the title or the subtitle of my book, "A Lifetime Conversation," that's an immediate Bruce quote, correct? So, in I think it was in 2012 or something, Springsteen was interviewed by Jon Stewart, and he said this sentence that he's aware of being in a lifetime conversation with his audience, and that he's trying to keep track of that conversation. So, in a way, what you just pointed out on the emergence of the museum is something that Bruce Springsteen acknowledges. I mean, he's aware of the importance of his fan base, and he's interested in that kind of kind of exchange. Now, why is that possible? Is I think what you're asking, and is it? I mean, the other question could also be: is it correct to refer to something as a conversation when the participants within that conversation are not actually in the same room at the same time, right? Can you still talk about a conversation? I think there are a number of reasons why it does work between Springsteen and his audience. And I mean, one of the reasons may actually be the notion of lifetime. I mean, if you listen to Springsteen's albums, or if you revisit them, and you realize that they actually do cover a lifetime of experience. I mean, Springsteen's first albums in the early 70s, they are about adolescence, about beach parties, about being young, and about growing up, as the song is called, right? And then the career-wise, it moves on to getting older, to experiencing darker times, to experiencing the need to take on responsibilities. If you think about the river, and then it's marriages and the breakup of marriages and founding families, and then in our century, in the 21st century, it's all about the political experiences that we share. So I would say that in a sense, Springsteen is an artist uh, whose work covers not only his own lifetime, but at the same time the lifetime of his listeners, and you can relate to all these to every album in the sense that you share experiences that are expressed in these albums, up to the point where his last studio album, Letter to You, deals with mortality, with the experience of friends passing, of getting old, in every sense of the term. And so it's basically like a companion through life, and that's just one of the reasons, I can talk more if you want, but maybe you want to.
When you said growing up, I almost belted into song, but I managed to restrain myself. No one needs to
It's
hear
hard.
that. Do you think Bruce's fandom is different from other fandoms in the music
Yeah, yeah.
industry, and why, if so?
It's a great question because, and I've been asked this question a lot of times when I told people I write this book about Springsteen, and I think he's very special in this respect that he has an audience that feels that they are in exchange with him, and then people say, well, you're biased. You think that because you're a fan, and there are all these other artists, and I don't, there are other artists that may work in a similar way. I mean, probably if you talk to younger people, they would relate to Taylor Swift in a similar way, just or Harry Styles, or just to give just a few examples. But I think there's a difference with Bruce, and the difference becomes very obvious when you compare his persona to other rock stars. Let's say, Mick Jagger, Michael Jackson, Madonna. They are cool personalities, I'm not judging. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but they're cool. Like you don't get the feeling that you can access them as a person when they perform or when they talk in interviews. So there's this notion of the rock star being a cool person. And I would say Bruce is a warm person. I mean, he expresses a warm personality, an accessible personality. And of course, I'm aware that this is, it's a performance. And I'm aware that a lot of the things he says and a lot of the moves he makes on stage, they're scripted. I realize that, I realize it's not all authentic, but the idea, I think, that is behind the statements that he makes and the songs that he sings and the moves that he makes is to display an accessible, a warm personality. And I think he is not the only one, but he has brought it to a level that I think is almost unique. And the fact that you alluded to earlier, that there's this huge fan base of people who listen to his music for decades, like for 4 or 5 decades, is proof that there's something special going on.
And not only listened by themselves for decades, but passed it down, right? Love
Yeah,
of Bruce's music, the fandom has
exactly.
become intergenerational.
Oh, it
I always
has.
say I get my love of Bruce from my mom, who, by the way, shares a birthday with him.
Oh, nice.
That's how I was introduced to Bruce. And now I have two boys, 14 and 18, and
Mm.
my oldest is a very talented piano player. He could play you Bruce's entire catalog, right?
Oh, wow. I
So
want
the
to listen to
fandom
that.
now spans multiple
It
generations.
does. It does. I mean, I have similar experience with my kids, and also you can experience it at any show. I mean, they're like people are in their 70s or 80s, and then there are teenagers or even younger kids who go with their parents, and it's a great experience. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that Bruce's relationship with his fans has changed at all over the past 50 plus years?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I wasn't around when he became big. I mean, I was around, but I was not a fan yet when he was becoming big in the 70s. But everybody I talked to from that period says the intensity was already on an extremely high level back then, and people knew, everybody who saw him, especially who saw him in concert, knew that this was somebody very, very special. And that's certainly true. And I started listening to Bruce's music with Born in the USA, so in the mid 80s. So that was already when that was the phase when he became a real superstar. So again, you could say, it became even more intense. But my feeling is that it's actually been in within the past 20 years that it has intensified the relationship because and the reason for that might be that Springsteen's music no longer only addressed, biographical aspects of life, but he really addressed this notion of community. I assume it started with the reunion tour in 1999 and 2000 when the E Street Band, the reunion of the E Street Band became a symbol of being able to restore a community that has been broken before. And then, of course, everything around, the Rising album in 2002, that was a reaction to 9/11. And the albums that followed and the concerts that followed in which Springsteen intensely intensified the artist audience interaction, by picking up signs, requests, and all these actual communicative exchanges. So, and also, I just came back from the show in Washington on May 27th, and the feeling you get is that it's almost become more intense. And it makes sense maybe because if I'm right that this lifetime experience of being accompanied by this music, if that notion is correct, then it also makes sense that it's intensified because every year adds up to this experience that you're having.
No, that makes a lot of sense. A note on the song request signs.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
those in our
Wow,
collection.
that is so
And
amazing.
in
Yeah.
fact, when people come visit in our in-concert room, you go into the in-concert room and
Yeah.
the walls are ringed in a crowd scene. And it's like you've stepped into the pit at a show and we're looping archival concert footage. We have the actual original song
Oh,
requests
that is
signs from
awesome.
some
Yeah.
fans on the wall. So that's a nod to the fans right here in the
Yeah.
new center.
Yeah. I'm so looking forward to visiting.
Speaking of the community of
Mm.
fans, his most ardent supporters are not necessarily here at the Jersey Shore or
Mhm.
anywhere throughout the Garden State. He's himself said sometimes he thinks his most loyal fans are international, right?
Mhm.
Even when there's language barriers. Can you talk
Yeah.
a little
Interesting.
bit about the
Yeah.
international fans and
Yeah.
how love of Springsteen is
Mm.
not rooted in geography? You don't have to be from New Jersey
Yeah.
to love him.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, I'm an example myself, being
Yes.
German, and all I can say is that Springsteen, with Born in the USA, Springsteen was extremely big, and he has sold out shows to this day in Europe. And he refers to Spanish fans, to Dutch fans, to Italian fans, especially Swedish fans, Scandinavian fans. It's really an amazing phenomenon, and his concerts are also very special. He played his longest concert ever in Finland, so there's landmarks like this. It's hard to say why. I mean, one of the feelings I get sometimes is that, I mean, if you're an American, and also if you're on the Jersey Shore, you have such an embarrassment of riches of good music, and all these artists they play, in the New York area. You have every night you get these great shows and concerts, and I'm not saying that Americans don't appreciate it, but it's of course it's a difference. In Europe, you wait for the artists to come, and it's a very special. I mean, sometimes for years, there are laps between tours that last for years, and so it's in a way it's very special to see an artist making the effort to return to a different to another continent and to stay loyal with his fans in a much more intense way maybe than playing at home, which is kind of taken for granted. Again, I'm not trying to judge what's better or worse, but I think part of the European fan experience is just uh, the feeling that the fact that Springsteen returns on such a regular basis to our country is just very special. And then the fan community is amazing. And you talked about the pit experience just earlier when you referenced your new cinema or whatever it is in the center, and that's also very special because in an American pit, which is also a great experience, but most people are from the States. In a European pit, because the differences are so small between countries, there are people from all over the place, and I mean the language barrier, I guess, is just not that much of a problem because I think almost everywhere in Europe people start learning English
Mm.
early on, like when they're 10 or 11. Then we listen to a lot of American pop music, and so we also now talking about younger generation, when we watch TV series on Netflix or wherever, most people watch them in English now, and they may use subtitles to be safe. But
Mm.
so English is very around in Europe and has been for the past decades. And then I think the last reason for the language barrier not being a problem is that when you're a fan, you listen to these songs over and over, and you internalize them, and and sometimes you may even sing along without knowing what the words mean, but you know the words, and that's enough for the experience.
Oh, we were just talking about concerts and the pit, but Springsteen fans, to me, seem to do a really good job of creating community even outside of the concert
Mm. Yeah,
experience.
they do.
There's
Yeah.
been the fanzines, there's the fan
Mm.
groups,
Mm.
locally here, the Spring Nuts is huge.
Mm.
Talk
Yeah.
to me about the ways that the fans have created community
Mm.
outside of
Mm.
convening at the concerts
Yeah.
themselves.
That's really a fascinating topic, and I should have talked more about it in the book because it's really so important. I mean, you mentioned fanzines, Backstreet Magazine, it was founded think in the late 70s or early 80s. I should know that, but I don't know it exactly. And I mean, if you imagine what a fanzine is exactly, especially, under this today circumstances of social media today, a fanzine is really a Xeroxed, heap of papers that you distribute in front of the concert halls to people who attend. So it's really a grassroots movement. And from that grassroots movement, grew a community of people who really, really know everything that's to know about Bruce's music and career. And so the fanzine is a way to exchange this, your experiences, your knowledge, but your tickets, whatever. And they've been around for 4 decades. I think Backstreet has almost been. And of course, today social media have taken over part of that function. Also, there are a number of very, very knowledgeable podcasts about Bruce Springsteen's music. I maybe just mentioned None But the Brave, by Hal Schwartz and Phil McLean. I think they've
They
been
were just
doing.
here
Yeah, I
visiting.
know, I know. And then they talk about in their podcast that they
Okay.
were here, and they also contributed a very nice blurb to my book. So they're amazing, and I mean, I couldn't have written the book without them because the podcast has been around for 6 years, and the information and the depth of analysis they give is amazing. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned Spring Nuts and other groups, and then there are WhatsApp chat groups of people who meet at concerts, and their friendships, their marriages, everything can develop from being together at these shows. And also if you follow Bruce on a tour, you meet the same people again when you queue up for the pit. And so various formats, and mostly very, very nice people.
I just had to look it up real quick because I couldn't remember. Backstreet starts in 1980, and I know we have,
Thank you.
yes,
Thank
we've
you.
got them on display, and
Yeah,
on
I'm sure
books
you
in
do.
terms of how to relate history and artifacts to my students because I'm
Mm.
also a professor
Yeah,
at
I know.
Monmouth.
Yeah.
And the thing I say is think of a world with no internet, no
Yeah.
chat groups,
Yeah,
no
exactly.
social media groups. How would
Exactly.
you convene with your fellow fans? These
Yeah.
fanzines were an amazing
But they
way
made
to.
it happen, they made it happen. And they were bootlegs, which Bruce always referred to very, ironically at his concerts because, of course, he could not promote them, but he knew they were happening and he knew they were important to people. And I forget, but the Backstreet had this phone number you could call and then find out about the set list, about, on a tour. So that you knew there was a show in Chicago. And then the next morning you would call the Backstreet's phone, and then there was an automatic message that would tell you the set list, stuff like that. I mean, in a way, I mean, the internet obviously is extremely convenient, and we wouldn't be talking if it weren't for the internet right now. But just the level of creativity in the pre-internet era is impressive if I look back on it. I wasn't part of those communities, but it's impressive to see what people did and what people remember.
You just noted you weren't a part of those communities.
Mhm.
And earlier, I think you said that you first came into Bruce in the Born in the USA era. Can you tell us a little more about how your own fandom
Sure,
started? Yeah.
sure, yeah, sure. So, I mean, as for most people, it probably started with listening to a song on the radio, and having the feeling of, what is that, I mean, you listen to whatever, top 40 radio, and we used to listen to American top 40 music in the 80s, and so I was 14 when Born in the USA came out, so I had a lot of music I liked, and the old ritual of taping it to your cassette from the radio. And I will never forget the moment, and I start my book with that, with that event when for the first time, the I'm on Fire came on, and it's not like I'm on Fire is my favorite song today, but just the intensity of Bruce's voice in these first verses that he sings, it just grabbed me in a way like nothing else had ever grabbed me. And then what you do, you dive into it. So then you realize, okay, there's an album behind that song, and then you realize, okay, there's more albums, that came before that one album. And then Life 75 to 85 is released in late 1986. And that was, again, that was amazing. I mean, there were live albums around in the 70s and 80s, obviously, but a 5 LP box, which was 3 CDs later, I think 40 odd songs I don't remember, and that was just unheard of, and so the intensity grew. Then MTV, of course, because you also have to remember that back in the 70s and early 80s, you would never see the artist you liked unless you went to a concert, which was hard to do in Europe. And so MTV, all of a sudden there's a Rosalita video, Bruce in 78 in Phoenix, Arizona. And he's having a ball and he's interacting again with the audience. All the fans, they jump on the stage actually, which was possible back then, and hug him and tear him to the floor. And it's an amazing, almost physical experience just to watch it and to watch the joy, also the band's joy when playing these songs. And so, like it added up, and the experience I had was I like every bit of it. There's nothing I was not interested in. There was nothing I found boring. There was nothing that didn't speak to me. And that has, I don't know, that has proved to be a very reliable impression. For all those, I mean, the first time I have to add that. So, and it's a little tragic because I missed the Tunnel of Love tour. I was too young for the Born in the USA tour because I lived in a rural area and did not access to the bigger venue towns and the bigger venues. Then I missed the '88 tour, which I hate till this day, that I did. And so I saw Bruce for the first time in 90 on the 92, 93 tour when he was touring with the other band, and I felt like, I missed the real thing, I'm never going to see the E Street Band, But then, luckily, I was wrong, and the E Street Band reunited. And ever since the reunion tour, I've tried to follow the tours intensely and to be a part of it, part of them. And yeah, as I say, it's never let me down. It never, not talked to me, not spoke to me. And the reasons for that, I mean, are probably hard to analyze, but maybe you don't have to analyze them. It's just something that's proven to be very, very reliable. And yeah, and it's still true for until today.
Mhm. Having studied fans as you have, is there
Mm,
such a thing as a typical Springsteen fan?
mm. No, I would not say there is. I mean, I guess there are fan biographies that are similar to one another. I mean, you. I mean, there are a lot of testimonies of people who talk about crises in their lives that they experience, and then tell about how relating to Bruce's music or attending a concert or really helped them or changed their lives. And I'm sure in the archives you also have the Springsteen and I movie, and there's another beautiful podcast by Tat Canova called That One Lyric, where people just tell their stories of how one lyric in Bruce's catalog became important to their life. So and also, of course, I should relate to Sarfraz Manzoor's biography, Greetings from Bury Park, which is so beautiful that he grew up in Bury Park, because the title for his autobiography was a no-brainer, I figure, after
Mhm.
that. So, and you get all those stories, where people say that their lives were turned around in a good way by listening to songs from Springsteen's catalogs that spoke to them in a special situation. But I would not say that this is true for the average fan, that every member of Bruce's audience comes from some existential crisis and is uses his concerts in some therapeutic way, although that's really beautiful that it happens. But I think there are so many different reasons to feel addressed by his music that I would have a hard time to hard time to really generalize what the general Springsteen fan is. I mean, what is probably true is that people who are from the same generation have similar favorite albums, that there and that again relates back to the fact that there are that these albums address certain phases in life, and so different things speak to you at different times. But I really think it's about the variety, both of the music and of the fandom, and not about a certain type you have to be able to become a Springsteen fan.
No, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about some of the things that have caused controversy in the fan
Okay.
community.
Yeah, sure.
So, of course,
Sure.
politics
Yeah.
often divides the fan community.
Yeah.
Ticket prices have divided the
Exactly.
fan community.
Exactly.
Can you comment a little bit on these
Yeah.
things?
No, thank you. I'm really grateful you asked that question because I think it's very important. It's also, I talk about it in my book also because my book takes off with the 2023 tour, which was the first tour after the COVID-19 pandemic. And fans were very eager to see the band again. And then this ticket pricing happened, and I think there was a real feeling of letdown and of disillusionment about the way people felt about their fandom, and then the experience that um, prices were so high, and neither the Springsteen management nor the artist himself seemed much to care about that problem. And I mean, Backstage Magazine, we talked about Backstage Magazine. They basically announced that they're in a public letter that they are going to close now because they're so disappointed. So that's one thing. The other thing you mentioned, of course, is politics, and that is what can I say? It's at the heart of matters as we speak right now, because Bruce's last tour was labeled not only the Land of Hope and Dreams but also the No Kings tour, and I find that very I think it was Stevie Van Zandt who said in an interview a couple of years ago that, and I quote, it's not, I quote from memory. He said, "We lost half of Bruce's audience once he became Democrat," or something like that. Is what Stevie said. And the reason why that is very sad is that part of what Springsteen achieved back in the 80s, and I don't know, did you have Stephen Hayden on in your
Yes.
conversations? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So he wrote the great book 2 years ago for the 40th anniversary of Born in the USA. That Born in the USA was an album, that was able to address all people from all spheres of the political spectrum. And that is not to say that, of course, the song "Born in the USA" has been misunderstood and misinterpreted, but the album as a whole, at least that's Haydn's argument, represents an image of America and an experience of America that is not divided along party lines. And then the conclusion of Haydn's book, which is a very sad conclusion, is that an album like Born in the USA would not be possible anymore today. And I mean, that's really sad if you think about it. I mean, we talked about community, and but I guess it's the facts we have to face, and the facts that Bruce Springsteen has to face. And I mean, he's been taking a stand. I mean, he's been taking a stand for worker rights and everything back in the 80s, and I think that was maybe something that you could, that people could maybe agree on even across party aisles. But he's been taking a stance for Democratic presidential nominees ever since I think the John Kerry campaign in 2004, and of course he's been very, very explicit about the current administration. And I mean, he wrote a song about Minneapolis, and he dedicated a tour to the victims of the raids in Minneapolis in February. So I think he's never been more political than he is right now. And it's been very, very impressive to see him in Washington. I mean, in hearing distance to the White House, if you will. And and there are certain, I mean, you can hear in the audience every now and then that people do not agree, and I think, and that's okay, I think, I mean, it's okay to, it's not a, it's okay to voice discontent. But I think for most people who go there, it's just such an important experience to feel that their concerns are voiced, and also that, I mean, the narrative arc of the show that I just that Bruce played on the most recent tour also ends on a hopeful note, right? So he tries to again, remind the importance of community, and it's not just aggressive political stand, but it's also a plea for remembering the importance of community. But I don't think that at this point, and I agree with Stephen Hayden. At this point, there's a possibility to actually, create a message that at the end of the day, then everybody will agree on. So. But I could imagine, I don't know, I don't even know if he ever spoke about that, but I can just imagine that he's the one who suffers most, that it's not possible to create that common ground anymore.
That was a very thoughtful answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, as we come to the end of our time together, I'm
Yeah,
sure
all right.
everybody listening has
Yeah.
been involved in a project. It can
Mhm.
be at work, it can be
Mhm.
a home improvement project, but you're getting to the end of the project and you are sick of it. So, has this book changed your own relationship with Bruce Springsteen at all? Your own appreciation of Bruce Springsteen at all?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't sick of it. I mean, to tell you the truth, I mean, I know what you're saying, and I mostly experience it if I work on something. I mostly experience it in the beginning, that I feel like, oh, this is too much, and what
What
am
have
I
I
thinking? What am I
done?
thinking that I could ever do that? I mean, I think it's a very general phenomenon, and um, I think that one of the beautiful experiences was that, opposed to my academic work, when I started working on that book, I really felt that I know what I'm going to be talking about. I mean, it was like unpacking 40 years of dealing with Bruce, and all I can say, it felt good, and it definitely deepened my my relationship to the music and to my fandom, because I realized that it holds. It's not like I start analyzing or I start deep diving and then I realize, well, it, after all, it's not that great, or I mean, I thought it was nice, but when you look into it,
Mhm.
so no, I really felt like that the dots were connecting, and I felt that I got a much deeper understanding of how Bruce's work over the decades is actually interrelated. And I'm not, and the magic thing about that is that I don't think that when he started out in 1973 with his first album, that he kind of had the plan of, okay, I'm gonna make 22 studio albums, and
Yeah.
they will be in a narrative arc, and they will all,
He
tell.
almost
I
gets
mean,
dropped from his record label, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. So the magic is that this really emerged and evolved, but it did so. I mean, from my experience of really deep diving into the material, is that it really emerged in a way that tells a story. I mean, and so no, I was never sick of it. I may have been sorry when I finished, but of course,
No.
it was also a good feeling to having been able to complete it and to being able to present it to readers and to be able to talk to you today. So that's all good and great.
So if Springsteen fandom is a lifetime
Yeah.
conversation, where's the conversation headed next?
Yeah, great question, and I think the beautiful part about is that we can still be curious and excited about that there will be a next step. And I mean, I can't answer the question really, because in a sense, the Letter to You album already addressed, mortality and the experience of, aging and maybe not being around forever. And Bruce references the fact that the E Street Band is not going to be around forever. But I'm more than positive that Springsteen will continue to react to things that happen both in his own life and to events that happen in society, and he will address them. And so and hopefully he will keep touring. I mean, maybe one of the things I expect him to do in the near future is to do another solo tour, which he did. I think, I mean, if you count Broadway, the Broadway shows, he did it 3 times to go on stage alone, and that is another very intense experience and an experience of exchange. So that might be the next step to return to that format. And after having toured for 3 years now with the E Street Band, I would be very glad if he did it. But I mean, the answer is open, right? I mean, and maybe Bruce himself does not know what's going to be his next step, because I think he reacts to things that happen, and he may have to take some time to see what the next topics could be.
Well, Nico, this has been so lovely. Is there anything you'd like to add that we have not covered today?
Oh no, I think we talked about almost everything I I can talk about, and I want to talk about. And it's been great to get the chance to talk to you. And I know you've been very busy with the museum and everything that's been happening over the past weeks. And so I'm just glad that I had this opportunity. And thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time. Congratulations on the new book. And
Thank you.
everybody who is watching this, you have to go out and get a copy of Springsteen
Great.
Fandom, a lifetime conversation. There it is. Awesome.
Exactly.
Yay. All
Yeah.
right. Congrats again. And thank you, Nico. Have a great
Thank you, Melissa. Have a
day.
great day.
Bye-bye.